Have you ever walked into a church, sat before the tabernacle, and felt the silence almost breathing, as if someone was there? Not just a symbol, not just a reminder, but a living presence waiting for you. Many enter the chapel and don't realize it. Others kneel, but their thoughts wander. Some come with deep faith and leave transformed. Why? Because there is a way to adore the Blessed Sacrament that opens heaven itself, and there are mistakes, often unnoticed, that close the door of grace right in front of us. Saint Faustina Kowalska, the humble nun chosen to reveal the divine mercy of Christ, left us a map. Not a complicated one, but a map that shows how to sit before Jesus in the Eucharist, how to adore him, and how to avoid the traps that make our prayers cold, distracted, or powerless. Today, I'm going to share with you her revelations. We're going to walk step by step through what it really means to adore the Blessed Sacrament, not just with words, not just with ritual, but with a heart so alive that heaven bends down to listen. And I need you to stay with me until the very end, because the mistakes we'll uncover are the same ones most people make without realizing. But once you see them, you'll never adore the Eucharist the same way again. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here, we uncover spiritual truths that can completely reshape your relationship with God. If you're seeking more than rituals, if you're seeking transformation, then you'll want to stay connected. So hit the subscribe button and let's begin. Let's start with the first secret of true adoration: entering the chapel with the right awareness. When you step into a chapel where the Blessed Sacrament is present, you are not just entering a quiet room. You are stepping onto holy ground. It is not the silence of emptiness you feel. It is the silence of someone waiting. One of the most common mistakes people make is to treat this space as if it were any other. They may enter distracted, chatting, scrolling on their phones, or letting their eyes wander with no awareness of who is before them. Saint Faustina reveals the opposite attitude. She reminds us that the moment you walk through that door, the Eucharist is no longer bread, it is Jesus himself. Your first gesture should be to acknowledge his presence, a genuflection that is real, not mechanical, a bow of the head with meaning, not routine. Even a silent prayer of the heart. My Lord and my God, I believe you are here. It is this conscious awareness that separates an empty ritual from an encounter with the living Christ. If you struggle with distractions the moment you enter, take a breath and whisper in your soul, Jesus, I come to be with you. Open my heart. Do not rush to fill the silence with words. Let the silence itself remind you that you have entered into the presence of eternity. Common mistakes to avoid: entering hurriedly, as if checking a task off your list, treating the chapel like a waiting room, forgetting who is present, making the sign of the cross, or genuflecting without intention. Your body moves, but your heart does not. Beginning to pray without pausing to recognize he is here. Saint Faustina once wrote in her diary that a single glance at the tabernacle made with love can pierce the heart of Christ more deeply than 1,000 distracted prayers. Think about that for a moment. It is not the length of your prayer, nor the number of words, but the awareness and love with which you look at him. So the first step in true adoration is not about saying the right thing. It is about arriving with a heart awake. Once you have entered with awareness, the next step is learning how to sit before him, not just physically, but spiritually. Because even when we mean well, we often fall into the trap of trying to do too much during adoration. And that's where the second lesson of Saint Faustina begins. After you enter the chapel and acknowledge the presence of Jesus, something extraordinary happens. The world grows quiet. But inside of us, noise often continues. Thoughts race, worries intrude, our minds replay conversations, plans, fears. And here lies the second great mistake many people make. They rush to fill the silence with words. Yes, prayer is speaking to God, but deeper still, prayer is listening. Adoration of the Blessed Sacrament is not meant to be a monologue, it is a dialogue, and sometimes the holiest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Saint Faustina revealed in her writings that she often sat before Jesus in total silence, allowing him to speak to her soul without interruption. She understood that his words are not always heard with the ears, but with the heart. Practical guidance. When you kneel before Jesus, resist the urge to begin reciting long lists of requests immediately. Begin instead with silence. Breathe. Let your soul settle, like water that becomes still after being stirred. Whisper only a short invitation. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Then wait. Common mistakes to avoid. Talking non-stop in prayer, leaving no room for Jesus to speak. Using adoration only as a time to get things off your chest without opening yourself to God's response. Becoming uncomfortable with silence as if it means nothing is happening. Silence is not emptiness. In the chapel, silence is charged with presence. It is like sitting with someone you love. Sometimes no words are needed to communicate. The gaze, the nearness, the simple act of being together says everything. Saint Faustina once noted that even when she had no words, Jesus read the depths of her heart as if it were an open book. That same truth applies to you. You don't need to force your prayers. You don't need to have the perfect words. What matters is being there with him, allowing him to read you, to comfort you, to guide you. When you talk less and listen more, something surprising happens. You begin to sense inspirations, subtle movements of grace, gentle reminders, or a sudden peace that has no explanation. That is Jesus speaking not in thunder, not in visions, but in the quiet whisper of his love. Now that we've learned the power of silence and listening, we must confront another challenge: what to do when distractions invade. Because even the holiest souls struggled with wandering thoughts during adoration. And Saint Faustina shows us how to turn those very distractions into moments of grace. You kneel before the Blessed Sacrament. The chapel is quiet, the candles flicker gently, the golden monstrance shines, and suddenly your mind starts wandering. You remember an email you forgot to send. You think about tomorrow's schedule. You replay a conversation that upset you. Or worse, you begin to feel restless, wondering how long you've been kneeling. Sound familiar? This is not unusual. In fact, Saint Faustina herself admitted that distractions often came during her time of prayer. The mistake is not that you get distracted. The mistake is believing that distractions make your prayer worthless. Jesus knows the weakness of the human mind. He is not offended when your thoughts drift. What matters is what you do next. Will you give up, or will you gently return your attention to him again and again, as a child returns to its mother? Practical guidance. When distractions come, do not panic. Do not scold yourself harshly. Instead, acknowledge the thought and quietly redirect it into prayer. If you think about a person, whisper, "Lord, bless them." If you worry about a problem, whisper, "Jesus, I trust in you." If your mind wanders to daily tasks, offer them up. May everything I do be for your glory. In this way, your distractions are no longer enemies. They become bridges, leading you back to him. Common mistakes to avoid. Believing you must have perfect concentration for adoration to count. Growing discouraged and leaving early because you feel too distracted, thinking God only listens when your prayer is flawless. Saint Faustina wrote that the effort to return to Jesus, even 1,000 times in 1 hour, is itself a powerful act of love. Every time you say, "Lord, here I am again," you are proving your fidelity. It is like a child learning to walk. Each stumble, followed by rising again, delights the heart of the Father. Distractions, therefore, are not proof of failure. They are proof of perseverance. Think of the Eucharist as the sun. Clouds may pass your thoughts, your worries, your distractions, but the sun remains shining behind them, steady and radiant. So too with Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. Your gaze may wander, but his gaze never leaves you. Once you've learned how to handle distractions with grace, the next step is to deepen your adoration through love, not just ritual actions, not just formulas, but a living flame of the heart. And this brings us to Saint Faustina's next revelation, what it really means to adore with love. There is a danger in prayer that even devout souls fall into routine. We kneel, we say the familiar words, we move through the motions, but the heart remains untouched. Saint Faustina teaches us that true adoration is not measured by how many prayers we recite, but by the love with which we offer them. Even the simplest act, like whispering, "Jesus, I love you," can pierce the heavens if said with sincerity. Practical guidance. Do not be afraid to pause between prayers and simply gaze at him. Do not rush. Let each word rise from the heart, not just the lips. Use prayers as doors, not destinations. They are meant to lead you into love, not replace it. Saint Faustina revealed that Jesus longs for one thing above all, the love of our hearts. When you come before him with affection, tenderness, even clumsy words of devotion, he delights in you. Your adoration becomes a meeting of two hearts, the heart of Christ burning with mercy, and your heart, small, imperfect, but sincere. This is the essence of adoration. Not perfection, but presence. Not flawless words, but faithful love. Common mistakes to avoid: believing that prayer only has value if it follows a strict formula. Comparing your devotion to others instead of offering your unique love. Forgetting that Jesus desires your heart more than your eloquence. Imagine sitting across from a dear friend. Would you repeat memorized lines the whole time, or would you speak from the heart? That is what Jesus desires in the Blessed Sacrament. He wants your honesty, your gratitude, your struggles, and above all, your love. So let us remember the path that Saint Faustina illuminated for us. Enter with awareness, acknowledging his presence. Be still, listen, and let silence speak. Face distractions with patience, turning them into prayer. And above all, adore with love, not as a ritual, but as a living encounter. If you do these things, you will never leave the chapel the same. Grace will flow into your soul, your faith will deepen, your life will change. Because when you adore Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, you are not simply visiting a church, you are touching eternity. If this message has touched you, I invite you once more. Subscribe to this channel. Here we share the treasures of faith, the secrets of the saints, and the ways to grow closer to God in your daily life. Do not walk this path alone. Let us journey together. Click subscribe and let us continue discovering the beauty of Christ's presence, one revelation at a time.